throughout this race, there's going to be a lot of surging, and with the physics of gameplay, once you get up front, it will be important to keep that power up, to stay in the group and continue to be strong. So it's definitely a game of tactic when it comes to virtual cycling. That is for sure.
For sure. And just want to welcome everybody who is joining us online right now. It looks like we've got 34 viewers currently watching the live stream right now. Apologies to everybody who was watching the first 10 minutes or so of the stream. We were having some audio difficulties. Thanks for letting us know that there was no sound. Hopefully there is some sound going in now. Yeah, we got a little message from Jim saying the sound is on. That's one quick reminder for me to always check back to make sure that the sound is on by going into the chat. So join us today in the chat as well if you want to cheer on any of your riders. We've already got E. Simpson saying, "Go K. Simpson," and Katya Hruchuk saying, "S. Hruchuk," with lots of exclamation marks. And of course, all the people who are letting us know about the sound. So thanks for that. Join us in the chat and let us know who you're cheering for and to who to give the shout outs to, and we'll try to give you a good play-by-play. We apologize for missing the sound earlier. Basically, we just covered the start of the race, and you got to see the on-screen start list, so that's great. So we won't go through that again in terms of reading out the names, but they did appear on the screen there for you, so you know who's in the race as well. So thanks for joining us, and we're doing this hopefully every week now, so be sure to like and subscribe into that YouTube channel so that you get notified every time we do a new live stream. So be sure to hit that bell and subscribe button. Also, if you have a chance to head on over to buymeacoffee.com/ARC events to donate to help keep this live stream and cover some of the costs doing that, couple of dollars to pick up a coffee for us, that would be excellent. So let's turn our attention back to the race now that we've got some audio here. And we're about 12 minutes into the race, 12 and a half minutes, 7 and 7.5 kilometers, so 7 3/4 kilometers into the race. And it's still our group of 4 riders, although it looks like Annabelle Thomas has detached a little bit. She's working hard to get back onto that group of 3 riders with Baker, Roberts, and Gunter.
Yeah, and Andrew, it's really great to see here. We do have our 4 riders up front, and it's a solid representation from each sort of province here. We got Aaron Gunter from Manitoba. We've got Dylan Baker from Attack Racing in Ontario as well. And then we've got as well Annabelle Thomas from Alberta. So a solid grouping here, absolutely across the whole group. I should also mention that we've got Sarah Roberts from BC. So 1 from each province. We're going to see some good nationwide racing here amongst the group. Similar to what we saw last time, it's anybody's game. We got a 40-kilometer race here, and we're only about 2.5 in. So expect it. It looks like we have it. Yeah, we got a good group. Anna Thomas is off the front as well. Expect some very exciting racing. I think we're going to see these 4 racers sort of stick it out for the next little while. We'll see if there's some attacks. Anything can happen in a crit race, just like in real life. So excited for another fun afternoon of racing.
Absolutely. And looking at the roster on the left there, it looks like the Noras and Ms. Brantz there. That's Annika Brantz and Nora Rittinger and Nora Linton are now working together because they're within meters of each other. Let's see if we can tune in to them by hitting back in the race. And there we go. We've got Linton and Rittinger riding together. And if I back up a little bit, we'll see how far back. There we go. Annika Brantz only a few meters off the back. Keep working hard there, Annika, and get onto that group of 3. And maybe the 3 of you can work well together and get up to our lead group of 4. It's only about 700 meters between our group of 3 back here and our group of 4 in the front. So put some energy into that pedal stroke, and maybe we can close that gap.
Yeah, it's funny. We did a bunch of talking here, so trying to remember what we said and what we didn't say before that sound was sorted out. But this is the first of a race series of 3 in the Canadian Junior Virtual Cycling Series. This is happening at Canary Wharf in London, England. And rest assured, this is a real course. This is a real place. I was lucky enough to spend some time in London myself, and they actually did do crit races on this very venue in the financial sort of district of London. So how cool is it that we can have racers from all over Canada getting together and racing in London, England? A feat definitely that would not be possible without the virtue of virtual cycling apps. So really cool that we're able to be here and have this experience on a snowy Sunday afternoon. Well, snowy for some of us anyways. So yeah, the joys of technology and where we're at with cycling, and what a cool new discipline to be showcasing here today.
Absolutely, and I'm still just amazed at how it's connected our vast country together. In previous years when we would have road events or any of the sub-cycling disciplines, it would be rare to see a rider from BC and Ontario or a rider from Quebec and Alberta and so on and so forth. But now with this virtual platform, we've got riders from across the country now being able to rip it up together and compete against each other in real time and have family and friends from around the world join us on the live stream and send out their shouts and cheers and all that kind of stuff. So certainly technology has made it a lot easier for our up and coming athletes in this country to compete and get some practice and race with each other and have a lot of fun. Just looking over here at our live chat here, we've got Smedatra saying Annika, Dylan, and Nora rip it up. Now I don't know how that is. That's actually backwards for Art Adams. So we got Coach Art Adams there helping the team out and giving them a little bit of a cheer. I'm wondering if the women are doing the same thing that the men were doing, where the groups were using a Discord channel or a Twitch channel to have kind of like a quasi race radio between each other and talk team tactics and stuff like that.
Yeah, and for those not versed, we do happen to see this now. This is a neat little virtue of virtual cycling, and the whole scene that sort of comes with it is riders are actually able to connect through voice apps such as Discord. Now, what you can do in there is actually an athlete sitting in their living room or in their pain cave in the basement might have earphones in, connected to Bluetooth through an app. And through that very app, their coach can be speaking with them, their teammates can be speaking with them, and race strategy can be done in real time. Now, this is a technology in real life racing that we might only see at the world tour levels of racing, but due to the technology advances we've seen with virtual cycling and all the fun apps that go with it, riders and coaches are able to talk strategy in real time. So although an athlete might be high on Watson, unable to actually talk, as usually goes for me when I'm doing any of this virtual cycling, the coaches are still able to get in their ear and give them a little bit of strategy, tell them what to do. And we saw that at play in the men's race. We know that's not uncommon. It's something that actually at the latest esports world championships, I was lucky enough to sit in on the race radio, and it was just that. It's all strategy and tactics and race managers and director sportifs in their ear. So I suspect that's what we're seeing now. And it should lead to some good tactics coming into sort of, well, not quite the midway, about a quarter way through the race now.
Yeah, 10.3 kilometers now elapsed, 31.1 kilometers left, 18 and a half minutes. The speeds of this race are really, really high right now. We're doing 40.5 kilometers per hour, and that's just looking at Annika Brandts right now. If we were to go up to the front of the group, it may even be a little bit faster. As you can see that they've put almost a kilometer now between our group of 4 and our chase group here of 3 in the back. So they are probably working well together and taking advantage of that draft. You can see on the left the wattage they're putting down right now, 5.5, 6 watts per kilogram. They're really working hard to put some distance between themselves and the rest of the field. Speaking of the rest of the field, it is a small enough field here that we could look back and see everybody else who's in the race. So right now we're looking at Annika Brandts in 5th position, Nora Linton right behind her a couple of meters, and then Nora Rittinger. They've separated a little bit. They're not going to get the same kind of advantage the 4 in the front have because they're not riding together. So hopefully they can tighten that up a little bit and then get back together and hopefully can stay on the same lap as our leaders here. Moving back, this is one of our motos. Now we've got Jay Smith, that's Julia Smith from Team Saskatchewan. Unfortunately riding alone, but doing a great job here. Keep that going there, Julia. Right behind Julia, we've got Kay Simpson, that is not on our start list, and that's okay. That means that there were a few people that made it into the race after the official registration closed and the start lists were transmitted to us. Sometimes that happens, and at the super high levels that might not be tolerated, but here at development level racing, sometimes mistakes happen and people don't get to register on time, so we tend to overlook these things. But try to register early and often so that we can make sure that we have your names on our lists and we can give you the proper due. Moving on back, it looks like we have no name on this particular rider, and then Now we have Melina Gouvremont from Espoir Laval. Bienvenue à tous qui étaient voir le chaîne de live stream. Je m'excuse pour ma français, c'est pas très bon, mais je vais essayer de parler en français quelquefois pour les autres qui viennent de la province, la belle province du Québec. So, allez, Melina, excusez-moi. Next rider we have on the list here is Sofia Hrychuk. She's doing well. Again, all these riders are alone off the back. It's unfortunate they don't have anyone to ride with, but keep working hard. Don't give up, and make sure that you finish the whole race there. And it's another moto, and it looks like that is... Oh, and it looks like Yasmin Purdon was entered into the race, but it doesn't look like she was able to get going. She's sitting here in the back at 0 watts. That could be a technical difficulty, but that's okay. There is a small consolation prize there for anyone who had a technical difficulty. They are entered twice into the big draw for the series. So while we've gotten our front group here, and it looks like Sofia Hrychuk has managed to get a little bit of a draft from that front group as they came by her, but she's all shut off the back. She might have a little trouble there holding on as she's slipping off the back as that group really puts the wattage down. But while we're looking at this group here, Josh, why don't you tell us about the big draw that we've got for all of our racers in this series?
Yeah, so we're very lucky in this series and very gracious to be sponsored by Four Eyes. And Four Eyes has actually stepped up for this series to help throw in a couple of draw prizes for not just those who've won, but those who participated. So for each person who's participated in the series, you've been entered to win a Four Eyes power meter, a non-drive side factory powered power meter. We saw some great winners last year. That was the first time Four Eyes came in and donated. So big thanks to Four Eyes. Quick shout out to them. And yeah, anybody who's entered in the race will be entered into the draw, as well as anybody, as Andrew mentioned, who might have some technical difficulties. We'll get a consolation extra name added to that draw. So unfortunately, that is one of the realities we deal with here in virtual racing, is sometimes power drops off or an internet connection might mess up, or we lose a rider due to new updates in the app or whatever it may be. Call it a new reality in this exciting new discipline. So at any rate, everyone who you see here today will be entered into that draw. So we'll be excited at the end of this series to hand out some great prizes, as well as the series winners in each of the U17 junior categories will receive some Cliff Bar prizing from that sponsor as well. So again, very gracious for the partners we have on board here. And if anybody's listening in who might know of somebody interested in supporting the series, please do connect them. You can go to the series website and contact through there. We're always happy to take any support for the series itself. And again, kudos, hats off to the Sask Cycling Performance Program who put this together for all of our young athletes.
Speaking of all of our sponsors, why don't we take a moment now to let all the folks at home know who's involved in putting this together from our partners and sponsor list.
Yeah, happy. So absolutely, we'd like to thank all of our event sponsors and supporters that make an event like this possible. First off is my employer, Cycling Canada. Cycling Canada is the Canadian governing body for the sport of cycling and supporting both sport and community cycling initiatives. Cycling Canada aims to inspire Canadians to cycle. At over 137 years old, most people wouldn't believe Cycling Canada is actually the longest running national sport organization in all of Canada. Head on over to www.cyclingcanada.ca for more information. Next up is Saskatchewan Cycling Association Performance Program. The Sask Cycling Association Performance Cycling Program is a development program aimed for young high-performance cyclists. Performance Cycling Program members also make up the organizing committee of this series. Check out saskcycling.ca for more details. Ontario Cycling Association, well represented here today. The OCA is the provincial sport organization of the province of Ontario. The OCA provides quality programs and events to recreational and competitive cyclists of Ontario. Find out more, head over to www.ontariocycling.org. Next up, Velo New Brunswick. At Velo New Brunswick is the home of cycling in New Brunswick. Velo NB offers cycle coaching, touring, racing, and events for their members. To learn more about the Atlantic Cycling Association in New Brunswick, hit up velo.nb.ca. Next up is Alberta Bicycle Association. We're also seeing a rider up there, the front representing Alberta. The ABA is an affiliated provincial sport organization of Cycling Canada for the province of Alberta. The mission of the ABA is to advocate, develop, and facilitate cycling for Albertans. Check out albertabicycle.ab.ca for more. And last but not least of our provincial associations is Manitoba Cycling Association. The Manitoba Cycling Association is the not-for-profit, volunteer-based provincial sport organization responsible for the promotion and development of cycling in Manitoba since 1980. To find out more, head to mbcycling.ca. And again, last but not least, a very proud sponsor of Cycling Canada is 4i and the Junior Virtual Cycling Series, I should say. 4i's Innovations believes in empowering athletes by providing them with all the tools they need to get the most accurate results. From recreational riders and runners to sponsored pro teams, 4i's creates tools that helps customers train for a personal best or podium finishes. And again, thank you to our sponsors and all of our participating provinces in this series. We're very happy to have everybody out and excited to see a nationwide effort here. And we'll head back to the racing.
Thanks for that, Josh. Yeah, so a little bit of activity while we were giving the shout-outs to our sponsors. Dylan Baker tried to do a small little flyer. She gained about 10 or 15 meters on the group. That might have been coincidental, or maybe she was looking to extricate herself from our lead group, but that closed up quickly thereafter. So it's back to our lead group of 4 of Gunter, Roberts, Baker, and Thomas, who now have... it looks like about 1.5 kilometers of an advantage on 5th and 6th place. So they are certainly adding to their advantage, working well together. Annika Thomas here off the front, putting down some wattage as well, and everybody responding to keep that pace really, really high. So let's head on over and check out our racers here. There we go. On the screen right now, you're seeing a group of 4, Roberts, Baker, Gunter, and Thomas. And we've got
and we're seeing some, as sort of expected, we're seeing some really strong riding, averaging in at around 3 watts per kilo for these riders, 2.5 to 3 watts per kilo. As you'll see, sort of the odd effort in red there on the left of your screen, that's when a rider really surges up. There are some physics involved with the technology of this game. So once you end up out front, sort of taking on that headwind, that's when it requires a little bit more power. You're not sitting in and conserving energy and losing that headwind. So it's a bit of a game. You're going to, for the athletes, it's very much on, off, and not to mention within a crit, the power ask is pretty high as it is. So these athletes are putting in pretty big digs throughout this race.
Yeah, and you'll have to forgive me. I've been mispronouncing the name of our lead rider. That's Annabelle Thomas. I'm not mispronouncing. I've been using the wrong one. I've been saying Annika. There's another Annika in the race, Annika Brents. That's Annabelle Thomas. So forgive me for that. Annabelle Thomas from the Cycle Meisters Bow Cycle team from Alberta, representing one of the 4 riders up front now. Annabelle Thomas from Alberta is riding really strongly there with Sarah Roberts from Cycling BC, the British Columbia representation there. Aaron Gunter from the Manitoba provincial team, and Dylan Baker from Ontario Attack Racing. So we've got the 4 provinces here. The only one not represented in that group right now is Quebec and Saskatchewan. They're working hard, trying to catch up to this group of 4 ladies who are working really hard. You can see on the screen right now, they are out of the saddle, working really hard. Dylan Baker's off the front a little bit, and then the rest of them are responding to get that pace up. You can see those numbers, 4.5, 5.5 watts per kilogram, trying to keep this a close race between the 4. Annabelle Thomas in front once again, with Gunter, Roberts, and Baker shortly behind, and now they've come back together in a nice little group here, coming around to one of the corners. You can see the physics in this game, Josh, are pretty good. Most of you who ride bikes and have raced in the past know that most cornering starts from the outside, as you see now, and they come onto the inside corner, and then they move to the outside corner, because if you were to try to do it any other way, you would probably end up in the sidewalk or the ditch somewhere, kind of thing. So And even though they were pedaling through those turns, some turns you can pedal through, but often you don't see riders pedaling through it. But the way that they come through these corners in this virtual world is pretty solid. There are other cycling apps that you can use out there to do virtual riding and racing. And out of the ones I've seen so far, this one looks like it has the best sort of riding physics. It kind of truly does feel like you are in a race when you're looking at your avatar. And there goes Dylan Baker on another flyer there, trying to get away. Roberts countering right now. Thomas and Gunter hot on Roberts' wheel, trying to catch up. They do not want to let Baker get away. Baker's got a lot of strength right now. She's got all these matches in her book to light up and try to go on a solo flyer. Super early right now. We're not even halfway through the race with just 19 kilometers finished. But Baker looks like she wants to shake her companions and ride this one solo. Annabelle Thomas now once again in front. Let's take a look behind and see a little bit of a gap's opened up between Baker and Thomas, but I think Gunter and Roberts will close that up pretty quickly. Baker still hard on the pedals, 5.5 watts per kilogram, making the rest of her front lead group work hard to stay with her. Now they're all coming back together. Roberts just digging deep, bringing Gunter and Thomas up with her. And the four are now riding side by side, and it looks like Baker has pulled back a little bit. 2.5 watts per kilogram. Okay, that was a good attempt on Baker's part. We'll see some more action from this group in the future, I'm sure.
And real notable mention to say here, Andrew, Dylan was one of our champions in the last edition of the series in the U17 category. So she has now moved on up to that junior category, and she's showing that sort of prestige she brought with her from last season with that super strong win in the series last year. Riders will know that. Riders will have looked at the start list. They know who's involved here. So you see someone like Dylan Baker going off the front, they're going to respond. It's in their best interest not to let her get away. They know the power she has and the ability she can pull off. A unique sort of aspect about this race, especially compared to the men's race we saw just a couple of hours ago, is that right now we've got four riders representing four very different teams at the front. In the men's race, we did see some team tactics. And like we say, there probably was some race radios at play, some real tactic happening. With this current situation, we got four riders up front, the big gap from the rest of their teammates riding on their own. So it's kind of anyone's race right now, and they're going to be riding as individuals, using their head, trying to stay smart, conserve as much power as possible, as much energy as possible, knowing that it's really going to pick up in this sort of second half, last quarter of the race.
Absolutely, and it looks like we just picked up a few riders who were off the back, and they're hoping to maybe stay with this group for a little bit to hop on that train. It's certainly starting to stretch out again. Baker Roberts off the front, putting down some wattage again, maybe trying to take advantage of that little flurry of riders coming into the mix and looking for separation, but didn't work that time either. Annabelle Thomas in front once again, Baker, Roberts, and Gunter still all together. But it's a lot of activity for these four riders. It's great to see this kind of positive racing. Sometimes when you get a small group like this, it could end up being just sort of everyone working at a good pace, hard together, but you don't see this kind of action until later in the race. So they're certainly making it exciting for our viewers at home to see these ladies sort of attack each other a little bit, to see who's got the legs and who's going to be able to stay in. Cycling really is a game of attrition. It works. Everyone has a certain amount of energy stores in their body and their legs when they start the race, and they say from a slang perspective, only so many matches to burn. So you can see this kind of testing where there's, okay, who can stay with us if I keep increasing that speed? And some riders are sprinters, some riders are endurance riders. So the endurance riders can hold this high pace for a while, but if you've got these kind of punchy little sprints happening every once in a while, that may tire out the endurance riders, who then may crack at a certain point and fall off. So these kind of moves could be beneficial to the riders that are doing them, and we may see the results of that later in the race.
And Andrew, I know you've spoke to it a lot on this race, but I mean, we see the term, and you see it on the left of your screen, that sort of number watts per kilogram. For those watching who aren't familiar with what that might represent, can you explain sort of what the watts per kilo represents and why it's so important in these races?
For sure. So in the real world, we don't get to see this kind of data because it's just kind of like you're on your bike and you're going forward. So the physical nature of the race itself is the determining factor. But of course, if we're going to do this in a digital world, we need to have some way to translate that rider's power into the computer world. So all of these riders are on trainers, and with this platform, they're all smart trainers, or they've got some kind of power meter attached to their bike in their pedals or on their wheel or something that can convert the power they're putting into the bike into a term the computer can understand, which is essentially wattage. So every rider will be putting out a certain amount of wattage as they're riding. It could be 200 watts, 300 watts, 500 watts, 1,000 watts. You know, it's kind of like that sort of scene where someone tries to light up a light bulb using a stationary bicycle, and the wattage coming through being generated by the wheel turning is what lights up the bulb. So same idea, but the computer's taking in the digital wattage, and that's how it's letting the avatar know where they have to be in the race and how fast they're going, and they'll even translate that into how fast if you watch the cadence of their legs moving around, if they're going really fast or really hard, you'll see the legs start to speed up. They may even jump out of the saddle. So the computer uses that wattage information. Where the watts per kilogram come into effect is every rider has been asked to input their weight into the computer so that it knows it can use that in some of the other courses where gravity comes into play. So this is a very flat course, not a lot of elevation in here. It's a bit longer, and the reason it's longer is because there is no elevation, so there has to be a way to select. But in a hill climb type of a situation, they're going to use that. So the watts per kilogram is the total watts divided by the total kilogram of the rider. So, and it's an easier metric to know, because if there's a heavier rider out there versus a lighter rider, in a crit like this, it may not come into play big time, but certainly when we get into more of the climbing stages coming up in the next couple of weeks, that watts per kilogram number will start to play into effect, where a lighter rider won't have to put out as much absolute wattage to get up the hill as a heavier rider would. So that certainly does play into account into the digital physics. Speaking of some of the races coming up, Josh, you want to tell our viewers at home what they can look forward to in the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, that's great. And thanks, Andrew, for sharing some of the science there for people who weren't quite familiar with it. It maybe helps make some of those numbers make sense, especially when they turn red. You can really sort of understand the power that's getting thrown down here. So to speak next to the races we have coming up, as Andrew mentioned, this is a 1 of 3 race series, with the next one happening next Sunday and then the last one happening the Sunday after that. This race itself, Canary Wharf, is the longest in distance but the smallest in elevation, with only a 200-meter elevation gain over 40 kilometers. Next week, we head to the Dirty Reaver venue, which is a gravel race, actually. That will happen January 31st. Again, same time, same place. You can find us here. The distance will be 35.5 kilometers with about 450 meters elevation gain. So about twice as much elevation gain as we're seeing on this race here today. So that one should be a very interesting one. With more hills, you kind of get more people sort of tossing it up and changing it around, and some good attacks off the front, I'm sure we'll start to see. And then finally on February 7th, the third and final race of this edition of the Junior Virtual Cycling Series is happening at Cap de Formentor, and that's a road race. That will be a 22.5 kilometer race. So distance wise, about half of what we're looking at right now, but the elevation game, this will be the biggest one of them all. It's more of your hilly road race. That'll be 515 meters elevation gain. So we're going to see 3 very different styles of racing here. Gives sort of every rider with a different specialty a chance to shine, or gives riders a chance to really show their versatility as a racer themselves on different styles of venue and different styles of racing. So some exciting sort of variety coming up in the series, and we're excited to see what happens next week and the week after to finish it all off.
Yeah, it's going to be an exciting series, that's for sure. Not quite as long as the first series that Saskatchewan Cycling put together last year, but certainly is going to be an exciting and intense one of 3 races, one for each of the men and the women, both starting at noon and 1:30 p.m. Eastern time, respectively. For those of you on the West Coast, that is 9 and 10:30 a.m. Pacific time for the men's and women's race. So be sure to subscribe to this channel here, Junior Race Series, to get notifications as when the next live streams will be available. So be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. And if you have a moment, head on over to buymeacoffee.com/ARC events, that's ARC events, and donate a small little amount to help keep this live stream running and cover some of the costs associated with it. Looking back to the race, so we still have our group of 4 riders off the front right now. A little bit of activity there when Josh was letting us know about the next events in the series. We had Baker and Roberts. Looked like they were almost going to get away there, but of course Gunter and Thomas were able to respond to that and get back in. So there's a lot of back and forth. You can tell if these avatars' heads could turn right now. I imagine they would be looking at each other saying, okay, what are you doing? What are you doing? Who's going to go next? That sort of thing, the kind of thing you would see in real world racing. But as you mentioned earlier, Josh, the technology has gotten a lot better over the last few years. And then I think it's been even leaps and bounds in the last 6 months as a result of the pandemic, forcing these companies to up their game due to the increase in subscribers that they were getting. So I'm sure we're going to see that kind of stuff in the future, where riders will have more control over their avatar and maybe even be able to steer a little bit more and decide to do a few things to make these kinds of real world tactics a lot easier to do, sort of sprint lead outs, or I want to be behind my rider and I want to be here and all that kind of stuff. So, as we move forward in this, I certainly expect things to get a lot more exciting in terms of virtual racing.
Yeah, and I think we've said it before. It's cycling's in a very unique position in that we can sort of participate in this very popular realm of esports while still remaining physically active, still being competitive, and still absolutely testing ourselves against our closest competitors. So as the discipline itself continues to develop, we're going to see the apps develop. We're already seeing apps like Zwift, for example, are talking about putting in a rowing feature so you can have stationary rowers virtually racing against each other. So I think, cycling, we're very fortunate in that we were able to kick off this sort of realm of virtual sort of competition. And I think the sky's the limit. As mentioned before, I think this is absolutely, it levels the playing field. Typically, to be at the top of your game in a lot of disciplines, especially North American riders, you're seeing them have to make that sort of pilgrimage over to Europe and sort of grind their teeth against the world's best there. Whereas here, if you've got the right fitness and the right experience on an app, I think, as we saw at the World Championships just this past December, Canadians can be top contenders in their own right. And we're seeing people really make a name for themselves with a discipline like this in its own sort of world. So it's really exciting to see this come along. Really exciting to see where it goes. Just having seen where it's come in the last 6 to 8 months is impressive in itself. So exciting for this future. Excited that these young athletes are able to sort of cut their teeth with a unique series like this. And who knows, maybe we'll see some of these athletes on that esports national team, or better yet, even some of our, traditional discipline national teams moving forward. I think that's the point, is to give these opportunities to the riders for a chance to develop and stay competitive in the off season and during a pandemic.
That would certainly be great to see some of these riders move on up to bigger and greater things. As you know, this is a grassroots junior development program kind of race to bring a bunch of juniors and cadets around the country together to compete and to learn and to have some fun. So hopefully we'll see big things for these riders coming up in the future. Why don't we take this opportunity here, Josh, since we have a bit of a lull in the action in the front, to just sort of look back at some of the other riders that we've got here. We've been focusing a little bit on the 4 riders in the front, but there are more riders in the race. So if we just move back on screen here, we've got Nora Linton. Big shout out to Nora Linton from Attack Racing, still working hard, working really closely with Annika Brantz and Julia Smith from Team Saskatchewan. So the 3 of them are working together. That's great to see. Like we said, if this is a development race, then this is the opportunity to do that, to get together and develop and learn the proper way to race together. Because earlier we saw that these riders were riding separately. Now they're riding together, taking advantage, taking turns at the front. If we sit here and watch them a bit, Josh, I bet we're going to see that. So we'll see. Right now we've got Annika in front, and then Nora's behind. And it looks like Julia fell off the back a little bit. I don't know what's happening there. Maybe there was a loss of power connection or whatnot, but it looks like they were working really well together. Brantz and Linton right now are certainly together and hoping to close that gap, or at least stop that front group from getting too much power. Nora's out of the saddle right now, sprinting away. That's probably part of the way that they're going to work together so that she can move in the front. I don't think that was an attack per se, because now Annika is now coming in and she's coming around the outside, coming in the front, and then also now Nora gets a chance to sit in her draft and then work together. So it's good to see these ladies working together. See if we can move back a little bit more, and we've got Nora Rittinger here. She's sitting in 7th place overall right now. So the list on the the left is accurate. No more motos in between 1st and 10th anymore. Unfortunately, Nora has to ride alone, but she's doing a great job. So keep that up there, Nora. After we've got Kay Simpson, one of our last-minute riders, so keep going there. maybe somebody online can let us know Ms. Simpson's first name there. We got a few people joining us on the chat here on the YouTube. And then looks like Julia Smith has really suffered here. She's falling off and the power is pretty low. So hopefully she's doing okay. Just got passed by our leaders. You can see on the screen there, our lead group, 4 riders still together. And they are working hard for the money. And this looks like it's an unnamed rider, so it's probably a moto. And then our Quebecois rider, Melina Goufframont, working really, really hard. Allez. And then down here we've got Sofia Chrychuk. I apologize if I'm not pronouncing that name correctly, but keep going. You're doing a great job. You're getting some good shout outs. We've got online. Just found out here from Kelly S. online that Kay Simpson is Kirsten. So Kirsten Simpson, great job. You got some fans watching you today. I don't know if you're watching, but keep up that power. Tyler Rittinger got a couple of shout outs to Julia and Sophia. Also says, go Nora R. from your sister Aubrey. So it's great to have the crowd here watching these ladies go. I'm sure it's encouraging for them to have that kind of support from their friends and family watching on the live stream today.
And how cool is it that not only can these racers actually race against each other from their own living rooms, but we're through the power of technology, we're actually able to live stream everything that's happening here. So again, a massive shout out to the Sask Cycling Association Performance Group who put this whole series together. They've been working sort of hard on this since almost this time last year, piecing it all together. This is the 3rd phase. So for those who are unfamiliar, we actually ran this twice last year in 2020, with the last phase 2 culminating at the end of summer 2020. So this is phase number 3. As it continues to grow, we continue to add new features. This is the first time we've seen a broadcast like this. And we hope to only continue to improve it. So really glad to see the support for the series, glad to see everybody tuning in, and really hoping that we see, in future editions, more athletes come out. We've said it before and we'll say it again. It's open to all athletes aged U17 and juniors. So even if you're just coming out to get a good taste of that national level of competition, all riders are welcome. It's free entry. All the information is up on the website. So we encourage everybody, if you're listening in and you're one of those athletes, check out the website, learn a little bit more. They have a great technical package. You can learn about the dates, the times, the requirements on your end. But love to see, riders trickling in. The series continues to grow since it first started. And we're excited to see that hopefully continue in future years.
Yeah, that's great, Josh. We certainly would love to see more young athletes join the program. So do check out that website and check out the website of your local provincial sport organization for cycling to learn more about how you or any of the young riders that you might know that might want to get into competition can start to become involved in the sport. Turning back to the race at hand, we only have about 12.5 kilometers left in this race, almost 3/4 of the way in. And we are nearing the 48-minute mark. We still have our 4 lead riders still working hard, working together. You can see a couple of attempts over the last few minutes, whether that's just riders jumping out of their saddle on their home trainer to stave off some of the muscle cramps that you get from being in the same position all the time, or they were actually trying to do a small little attack to see if they could shake somebody loose. A lot of strong riders in this group. Looks like they can respond to attacks. We've got Baker going off the front again. Gunter now responding a little bit. Thomas coming up there, working hard to close that gap. Doesn't want to let Baker go away. As you said, Josh, earlier, Baker was the winner of last year's series in that category. So she's certainly marked from the other 3 riders in the group. I don't think they're going to let her get away. So it may end up being just like the men's race earlier today, where we suspected that maybe one of the strong riders might have been able to solo off the front and come into victory. But it looks like it's going to be a 4-rider sprint finish for these ladies in this race as well. What do you think, Josh?
Yeah, I think we can expect some real high power outputs. I mean, last we did predict in the men's race that we might see somebody go off in sort of an act of desperation in the last couple of laps to avoid that group sprint. We may see the same here, as can be the case in crit racing, but the way that this group has been sort of going, as you mentioned, Andrew, there are some marked riders, someone like a Dylan Baker. She may make the effort, but they're not going to let her go unless they absolutely have nothing left in the tank to go after her. So it's going to be a real game of strategy as we sort of zone in on the last sort of 10 kilometers here. But just like regular real life in-person crit racing, it's going to be an exciting sort of last bit to this race. these 4 riders, I think we're going to end up with a group sprint, and it's going to come down to who has the most left in the tank and who can sort of work the best strategy.
That's for sure. Checking in with our live chat feature here on YouTube. A few more comments floating in here. We've got one here from, it looks like it's probably Emily Dodge. Go Dylan, I'm still stuck at the start line. LOL, Emily. I guess maybe she had some technical issues. I was sort of thinking about that. I remember you mentioning her name on the start list earlier when we were having some sound problems, and then not seeing her in the race. And I know that Emily Dodge is a strong rider, so it's unfortunate. I guess she had some technical problems. But as we mentioned before, there's a draw happening for the series, and I think we covered that those riders who do have technical problems and are unable to complete a race, they get a small consolation prize of a second entry into that draw for the 4 eyes. I believe it's a power meter that they're giving away. Is that correct, Josh?
Yeah, it will be a non-drive side factory install precision power meter, to be exact. So what ends up happening for those who win the draw, they send in that crank and they get it professionally installed over by the team at 4i Innovations. Brand spanking new power meter, some of the best. I mean, we see these power meters in the pro peloton. So some great prizing up for grabs. And as you mentioned, Andrew, if you can't finish, if you had some tech issues coming in, doesn't matter. You're still going to be entered. And as Andrew mentions as well, you do get a consolation name added to that draw. So with this being the first race of the series, we see this, this isn't uncommon that either the app might act up, maybe there's the latest edition of an app might not be on an athlete's phone, or maybe just straight up could be computers do weird things. We never know what can happen. But at the end of the day, this is we get the bugs out in the first race, and I'm sure in the next couple of editions, everybody will come in sorted and ready to go. Just one of the realities of this new discipline of racing is where we might see flats and mechanicals in real life racing. Here we're going to see technological mechanicals, if you will, or tech-canicals. I think we coined in the technical package. So just another a fun new reality of virtual cycling.
Yeah. So lots of cheers and shouts here coming in on the chat. Go, go, go from a lot of riders and from a lot of viewers for the riders out there. I've also been informed that I was pronouncing Kirsten's name incorrectly, so I apologize, Kirsten Simpson, for getting that wrong earlier. Great job, Nora R. from Diane Rittinger, and just in right now from JB48, go Annabelle, watching from Ottawa from Graham and Bop. So lots of family and friends out there watching their young riders and their family compete for glory here on the Canary Wharf virtual circuit at the Canadian Virtual Junior Racing Series.
And I bet you, Graham and Bop, you never would have imagined the day where you saw Annabelle racing in London on a virtual app as a video game avatar. But here we are. It's 2021, exciting times, and really glad you could be tuned in and watching. I too am sitting and watching from Ottawa, so I can't lie. It's nice to sit inside and know that minus 25 is not in here with me. So. Glad to see we're able to ride bikes in this sort of off season, and hopefully this continues.
So 9.5 kilometers left in the race. They just came across the start finish line. So with the roughly 1 kilometer course, looks like about 9 laps to go for our leading group of 4. They've picked up a few riders here off the, who are off the back, and hopefully these riders can take advantage of the draft of these 4 in the front here for a little bit while to get a bit of a rest. It's certainly an advantage to be able to do that once you get lapped. It's unfortunate that you've been lapped and you're not on the same distance as the other riders, but crits do allow for you to get in if you're not pulling those riders. So it is certainly a bit of a help that they can go and race with those 4 at the front.
And yeah, Andrew, absolutely. I think now as we're coming into this final little stretch here, it looks like we still have our group together. So again, should come down to an exciting sort of remaining kilometers. Anybody's game. I think you got some marked riders in there. Great to see the representation across provinces. So I think we need to get ready to gear up for an exciting finish. I think we're going to have some fans here on the YouTube sort of chat who are tuning in. I think we're going to have some people on their feet sort of screaming at computers, as we do with a lot of other traditional
That's
sports.
For sure.
So
it's certainly starting
glad you can all be watching in.
Get a little exciting now. Of course, you're looking on the screen now. Our group of 4 is no longer a group. I've got Sarah Roberts here in fourth position on the screen right now, and she has been extricated from the main group. She's fallen off the back. She's about 50 meters behind the three of them at the front. We saw a lot of activity from Baker and Gunter. They were out of the saddle, and here we've got, this looks like Annabelle Thomas just coming by, and it's no longer a group together, so she's chasing up, and Roberts is going to have to work really, really hard if she wants to get back on. You can see her numbers are in the red zone right now. She's trying to push, trying to get back onto that group, doesn't want to lose it. So let's move on up and see how the front three are doing. So they are all together. It's still Baker, Thomas, and Gunter. And then we've got Melina Gouffremont. She just got caught by that group off. She's just off the back there. You can see we've got the front picture. So that's a tough break for Roberts, getting shed off the group of these three now. But now it's a three-way race for the top spot on the podium. Virtual podium we're looking at on screen right now, unless Roberts can get back into the mix and compete for those top honors within the next 8 kilometers.
And as you allude to, Andrew, it's so important to be able to, if you're in that front group, to really try everything you can do to stay with it. The physics of the game sort of gives you that shelter. If you can be in the group, you're saving yourself from a bit of headwind, you're saving a little bit of power. So once a rider is dropped, as you mentioned, you'll see those numbers go into the red. They're going to try everything they can to get back into that group, make the final sprint, be in contention for one of those podium spots. As soon as you lose it, it takes that much more effort. As you're back, you're exposed, you're in the headwind, you're trying to come back. So in that sense, very much like a real life in-person outdoor race.
We're looking at the chat here now, and we've got someone asking, it's Diane Rittinger saying, who's from Alberta? I don't know if she's asking who in the chat is from Alberta, but we certainly have an Alberta rider in the field. We're looking at them right now on the screen. That's Annabelle Thomas from Cycle Meister's Bow Cycle. Representing Alberta in the front, Dylan Baker from Ontario and Annabelle working really well together to get to that finish line before everyone else. Gunter still in the mix, so it's a Alberta, Ontario, Manitoba triplet at the front of the race here, looking to go home with the gold. Yeah, and represent at the front that Alberta team, CMC Bow Cycle, very, very active team based out of Calgary on all disciplines. We've seen them actually host national championships in the mountain bike discipline before out in Kenmore. So really excited that they're sort of pushing through and helping to develop that young sort of generation. We've seen also at the front, Dylan Baker from Attack Racing, that crew very active in virtual cycling as well. So glad to see some strong young riders that may not have had the opportunity this season with our current situation, but here they are racing against each other nationwide, really showing what they have and having that opportunity to compete. So coming up now, we just hit the start line of the short little sprint here. This is a bit of a short sprint they've got in the course. As you can see, it's marked by these orange barricades to the side. It's kind of like the final stretch. So you know that when we get close to the end, when they're in this final stretch of barriers, that's pretty much the last 500 meters in the race. You can see the orange archway coming through. This is the actual finish line. I was making that mistake earlier in the men's race. I kept seeing the orange barrier come through, or excuse me, the orange gantry come through and going, okay, they've crossed the finish line again. And about halfway through realizing that it was actually 2. Normally in real world racing, the regulations don't permit for any overhead activity vis-a-vis a banner or gantry within the final kilometer of a race. So knowing that's what was sort of throwing me off. But, in the virtual world, anything is possible for sure. And of course, they're not restricted by the same regulations that the UCI, which is the international governing body for the sport, set out. So now that we know that, when you're in the orange barriers, that's the final 500 meters. So with about 6 kilometers to go, we're going to see some action here with these 3 women in the front competing to cross that line first. Yeah, we're in those exciting stages now. Looks like the group is still staying strong. They're throwing down that power. So always exciting to watch. It's really great that we have this opportunity to do some sort of live commentary and live broadcast of what's going on here. I'm only thinking of these athletes, having done a few of these virtual races myself. I know how they feel right now, just absolute pain putting down the power into those pedals. So
For any of the athletes tuning in, any of their parents, go guys! It's almost over. You're almost there.
Yep, we've only got about 5.5 kilometers left in this race. The lap counter is showing a lap 30 of 40, but it looks like that doesn't look like it matches up well because it's only a 40-kilometer race, 5 kilometers left. It should be 35 of 40. So maybe somebody can explain the mechanics of that to me later. This is sort of some of my first times using the RGT app, so learning a little bit here. Apologies if anything is misspoken or we don't get the proper thing out to you in the world there. But it's great to have so many people now. We're up to 45 concurrent viewers on the web stream. Everybody's tuning in at the end to watch the final few kilometers. Oh, and it looks like Dylan Baker is on the attack. She just took a huge effort here. Let's look behind and see what kind of distance she put on. Oh, and Gunter responded. Oh, and it looks like Annabelle Thomas is been gapped, and she was out of the saddle, working really hard. Looks like Gunter and Baker are slowing down just a touch. Thomas putting up 5.6 watts. Baker, and there she is. Annabelle Thomas was able to respond. So it's still Thomas, Baker, Gunter, 5 kilometers to go. Things are getting really exciting in the front end of this race here. A couple of riders up the field who were off the back a little bit. Maybe they'll be able to jump on and ride this super powerful wave going at the front. Looks like Nora Linton is in that group of 2. See if you can jump on there, Nora. Thomas, Baker, and Gunter coming in to the final stretch here. The last 500 meters or so before the finish line. Again, you can see those orange barricades letting you know how much distance is left to go. 4.5 kilometers, still 3 riders.
And you know that, Andrew, with every single one of those attacks that happens, somebody falls back, but they catch back onto the group. You can imagine you're seeing it on your screen, those red numbers, the amount of power they're putting into the pedals. That has an effect. So every single time you do that, that's taking a little bit out of that sprint you have at the finish, or just making sure that you have that much more to put back in the tank at the end. All these riders will be conscious of that. If they're able to sort of succeed with that gap and stay away, then they may have a better chance at the finish line. But it's a big risk when you put down all that power to try to get away. So it's a real mental game. It's a real strategic game. And as mentioned earlier, we probably do have some coaches in the ears of these athletes sort of premeditating those moves. They kind of know at what point in the race it's going to be time to go for it. And I think we'll see some of that strategy really at play here.
A lot of back and forth happening. Baker attacks. Thomas and Gunter respond. They get ahead, but then they slow down a little bit. So a lot of cat and mouse happening right now between these 3. And unlike the real world, there is going to be a little bit of delay between what you see on the screen and then your response. When you're riding out in the real world, you see somebody jump out of their saddle, you can respond within a fraction of the second just because you're getting that feedback right away. So there's a little bit of a disadvantage in this virtual world that they're not able to get that real-time feedback. Looks like Baker's dropped off the back a little bit. She has put out a big effort, so she might be a little bit gassed from that, but as time has shown before in this race, she should be able to get back onto that lead group. But Gunter and Thomas are working really hard. They know that Baker is a formidable challenger, so it would be better for them to come across that finish line without her in the mix, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, Andrew. And we're gonna see. She's gonna be marked, absolutely. And I think she's got the power to see it through. So there's definitely a formidable challenge here. This whole group. It's anybody's game. And looking too at our chat here, just want to say a big welcome to Diane Rittinger from Medicine Hat. She's new to virtual cycling, so happy to have you here. Hopefully you'll be able to learn a little bit from mine and Andrew's ramblings here during the race. Certainly this is a great way to tune in and see some top quality racing.
That's for sure. And we're hoping to do this for the next couple of Sundays for these junior races. So check in the schedule. It's on the juniorraceseries.ca website. We've got 2 races coming up each Sunday at 12 noon Eastern and 1:30 p.m. Eastern. That's 9 and 10:30 Pacific. Men's race goes off first, followed by our women's race. 2 different courses coming up. Going to be a lot of exciting. be sure to subscribe to this channel to get notifications when the next live stream comes up, and also all the wonderful videos that the folks at Saskatchewan Cycling have been putting together about this race and all that kind of stuff, so you'll find on the channel. And if you have a moment to head on over to buymeacoffee.com/ARC events and throw a couple of bucks our way to help make this live stream possible and cover some of the costs, would of course be greatly appreciated. 2.5 kilometers left. The pace is still pretty high between Gunter, Thomas, and Baker. You can see those numbers creeping into the red zone every once in a while. Still playing that game of cat and mouse in the final stretch right now of the current lap on the field. Looks like they're coming up to roughly 2 to 3 laps to go. Again, I don't have the exact math on how many laps are in, but Nora Rittinger is staying with this group, so she was able to catch on there and get a little bit of a draft. So keep that up, Nora, and see if you can stay with our group of 3 riders. 2.3K to go. They just came through the finish line. So if we are just a little over a kilometer lap, then it's 2 laps to go.
It's coming down to it. It's coming down to it. The exciting stuff's going to come. I think your prediction early on might be right. I think we'll see some form of a group sprint between these 3 riders in the end. So get ready for an exciting finish here.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate for Sarah Roberts there. She wasn't able to stay with the group, and there was a surge a couple of kilometers ago. Looks like she's now about half a kilometer back. I don't think she'll be able to bridge back up in these final 2K to this race. So it looks like it is going to be a 3-way event here between Gunter, Baker, and Thomas for the final sprint. Do you have any predictions for the final sprint based on what you've seen today, Josh?
Well, it's kind of funny you mentioned that, because I have raced myself in Zwift against one of the riders here, Dylan Baker, and she seems to beat me in every single race that I've competed in against her myself. So, I mean, that's the only one I really have a direct knowledge of. It's hard with these younger riders; they're constantly cycling through. So that's going to be my prediction, just given on I've seen her sprint literally, and that girl's got some power. But what about you, Andrew?
I think I would agree with that. It's all going to come down to the next kilometer and a half. We're down to just a few matches left in everybody's books, and which one gets burned. I've seen sprints launch at the wrong time that just get shut down, and everyone expected that rider to win. So, right now Baker looks like the strongest, but Gunter and Thomas have been putting up an excellent fight all day. So, it really could be anybody's game. And you're right with these women. They take the sport super seriously and they train hard, and this is the end result of it. So we're coming up 1K to go. We just got the bell at the line there, so the crowd in the virtual Canary Wharf, they're excited, they're cheering. It's nighttime, so the crowd wasn't as big as it was earlier, but it certainly is an exciting thing. And it looks like Gunter's putting down a little bit of pressure here on Baker. Thomas falling off the back a little bit, and she's back on, so it's still the 3 of them together. Thomas putting in a huge effort right now. In the red zone, Gunter responding. Baker just sort of sitting back, trying to figure out what's going to go on. Now Baker's out of the saddle, and she is putting down 4.5 watts and then pulling it back. So there's that cat and mouse, 800 meters to go. If this was the real world, they'd be looking at each other saying, who's going to go? I'm going to go. And Thomas in front now. Gunter, Baker following up in third right now. Biding time. I think they're going to see the attack come after this corner right as they come into the final stretch, that orange section. 500 meters to go. That's where you're going to see all 3 of them get out of the saddle. Look to your left. Watch that wattage. You're going to see it fly up really high as the 3 of them are going to attack for gold glory. Here it is, the final 500 meters coming up to the final stretch of orange. Looking at those numbers, it's Baker, Gunter, Thomas, all close together. And Gunter is dropping it. She did the first jump for the sprint. She is out of the saddle, sprinting super hard. Baker responding. It looked really like a late response. Can Baker actually do it? And it looks like she is falling back. Thomas and Baker together. Gunter, huge sprint. And it looks like she's going to take this one, coming across the line, 100 meters. And it is going to be Gunter in a first. Thomas and then Baker. And it says there's still like another 100 meters on my thing, which is kind of weird. That was the finish line, right? That's what you saw?
Yeah, that's how I saw it. We're gonna see here, I'm sure, in a few moments who the app titles the winner.
So then you go. I was calling the wrong part of the race. See, once again, folks, I was incorrect on that one. That was not the finish line. That was just the finish for the short sprint. The finish line was the purple line. We'll know this for next week. Hopefully they use the same infrastructure. So it looks like it was Dylan Baker who actually knew what the course was and didn't sprint at the wrong time, followed up by Annabelle Thomas in second, and then Erin Gunter in third. I thought it was going to be Gunter based on that. She took the 500-meter sprint in the orange section. I was incorrect. So kudos to the three ladies in the front there, Baker, Thomas, and Gunter, for an excellent race. We saw a lot of excellent racing today from both fields, the men and the women here, but it came down to the final sprint between the league groups. In this case, it was a group of 4 that got moved down to a group of 3, and then some excellent sprinting by these 3 ladies in the front. But excellent work by everybody. You can see on the screen over there, there's some high wattage coming in from 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th. So we'll just keep an eye on the screen there as we're talking and letting you know who's finishing. About 250 meters for, looks like Sarah Roberts will hold on to the 4th position as well. So yeah, a lot of excellent racing today. Josh, do you have any final thoughts about the race that we saw today here?
No, kudos indeed to the ladies today. What a race. What can I say? That was exciting to watch. We knew there would be some very strong racing with these athletes. So big shout out to Dylan Baker and the other 2 that really crushed it all the way to the end. That was high watts, high effort. We're really excited to get everybody back here next week. It's going to be a whole different style of race. And as Andrew mentioned, we're still working out some of the bugs ourselves to figure out where the intermediate sprints are versus the finish and everything else. But we're excited to bring this action back for another 2 editions. So you can find us here back in the same place next week. And we're excited to bring the same crew back and deliver a really high quality series to the masses. And again, a final shout out to the Sask Cycling Performance crew for putting this all together. What an amazing series, and very excited to be able to be here and commentate this.
Absolutely, myself included with that, Josh. So once again, thanks to all of our viewers who came out to watch today. We'll hope to join us again next week at 12 Eastern, 1:30 p.m. for the women's race, and 3 hours back Pacific time, of course. So be sure to hit that subscribe button to get notified when the live stream is going to start. On behalf of myself and Josh and everyone at SAS Cycling and all of our sponsors and PSOs, thank you once again. Great racing, everyone, and we're going to look forward to seeing you all next week, same time, same channel. Take care now.